that you got to be looking at more on the first day. Because it said on the day one, God said, let there be light, and there was light, right? Now we really done skipped to day 4. We're going to back up and read it all through. But we down to the 4th day of God working on his creation. That's the title of the lesson, the creation of God. So we down to the 4th day. And verse 14 said, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven. Now we got some more light here, don't we? Now either God is just duplicating some light, or we got to figure out what he's dealing with here, what we dealing with. Something is not going to add up. God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven. Go ahead, to do what?
To divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
Okay, he said, let it be lights in the firmament of heaven. We're going to find out where the firmament of heaven come in at. But that's where he put the lights, which is the sky. He put lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night. And also he said, let them be for signs and for seasons, for days and years. But it sounds like he duplicating what he did on day 1, right? Because he said, let there be light. At verse 5, he said, and he called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And even at verse 4, he said, God saw the light that was good, and God divided the light from the darkness, right?
That's right.
So what is he doing at verse 14? It sounds like a repeat, don't it? He said, he put lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and for signs and seasons, days and years. But go ahead, verse 15.
And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so.
To give light upon the earth. Go ahead.
And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
Oh, he made 2 great lights. We know these 2 lights are the sun and the moon. And he made the stars also, which is in the heaven, firmament of heaven with the sun and the moon. The greater light is the sun, the lesser light is the moon. But this is how we get light, brothers and sisters, by what we reading down here on the 4th day. This is how we get light. I told you we haven't seen the light with the naked eye from day 1. Go ahead.
Verse 17. And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the dark. And God saw that it was good.
See, now that's the same thing we read at verse 4 and 5, when he said he created light in the beginning, right, on day 1. So either some kind of way that light didn't work for us, and he had to come up with some more light, or something means something else. And God not doing nothing for nothing. If we see by this light that we're reading about here, the sun and the moon and all the stars and all that, it seemed like day 1 was a waste of time. What went on day 1 when he said, let there be light, and there was light, and divided the day from the night and the darkness from the light and all of that, right? What was going on then? We're going to get to it. Go ahead.
And the evening and the morning were the 4th day.
See, that was the 4th day when he created the lights that we see by, the sun and the moon and all of that. That was the 4th day. But now, let's take a look at it. Go to John, the 1st chapter, because we're going to read about the same thing somewhere else. And it's going to give us some more insight. Because how you start a thing really is the most important part of it. So the first thing that God did on day 1, it got to be important. Or else he just went to work for nothing. He could have stayed at home and just started on the 2nd day. But we know God is not doing nothing for nothing. He's not a vain God. So we know what happened on the 1st day got to be significant. And he didn't have to redo it on the 4th day with the sun and the moon. So let's see what it's all about. John 1 and verse 1. John 1 and verse 1. Go ahead.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Now this is how you get understanding. We're still reading about the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And then we saw that he started working on the heaven and the earth. On day 1, he created light. Then on day 4, he created some more light. So we got light all over the place, don't we? Because he created the sun and the moon and the stars on the 4th day. But now we're going to get some more understanding about what was going on back then in the beginning. In the beginning, God created, in the beginning it said was the Word. We know that's the same beginning as we just read, though, because it can only be one beginning. If I said one thing and I said in the beginning of this lesson, something went on, the choir sang, and then I said something else in the beginning, something else went on in the beginning, you know I'm talking about the same thing. So he said in the beginning was the Word. So this let us know more about what took place in the beginning. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So that we didn't really know. When it went on in the beginning, it was more than one being there. One was called the Word. He's the spokesman. That's why he called the Word. He do the talking. We got to remind people to cut your phones off. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Verse 2.
The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him.
See, the same, the Word, the one called the Word, is not a spoken word. That's a title of his. In Revelation 19, it said his name is called the Word of God. Talking about Jesus, the one that's coming back to take over this world. His name is called the Word of God. So that's who it's talking about. He was in the beginning with God. That's what people have a hard time reconciling, but we dealt with that thoroughly last week. That's why I said, verse 2, the same was in the beginning with God, right?
That's right.
And the same one, he created everything. The Father just let him handle it all. Even back then, it wasn't no father or no son. That didn't come about till Jesus became a man. But the one who we know as the Father, he just been sitting back, laying back, letting the Word do it. That's what he said. The same was in the beginning with God. Verse 3, all things were made by him. Him who? The Word, right? And without him what?
Was not anything made that was made.
See, without the Word, nothing got made that was made. He is the author of it all. But now, skip down to verse 14, because this will let you know who the Word is again. Verse 14, that was in the beginning, right?
That's right.
The Word created everything. He was God, and he was with God. Again, some people change and say, well, the Word was a God. You know, they try to diminish Jesus. Look, it said God here. And furthermore, it said he created everything. So who created everything but God, right?
Right.
So if Jesus created everything, he was the very God. That's not excluding the Father. It's letting you know he was there, but the one that did it, the God that did it, is the one we know as Jesus, the Word. So verse 14, what happened to the Word later on in history? Go ahead.
And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth.
See, that's letting you know who the Word is, right? That's Jesus. He is the one that do the talking for the Godhead. He's the Word. So he was God in the beginning, created everything in the beginning. Then he gave all of that up and became what we are, a flesh and blood man, right? The Word was made flesh. See, people have a hard time believing when you say Jesus is God, they say you blaspheme. But it's letting you know here. And you can prove this like we did last week from the Old Testament and the New Testament. You just don't see that third being as God. That's an angel. He got some power, but he's an angel. But it said the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us now, right?
That's right.
And we saw his glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. The only begotten of the Father. But even that is temporary, because what the creation is about is to bring all of us to God. But now, back up to verse 4, and we're going to get into it a little bit since we know who that was in the beginning operating. Go ahead. It's still talking about him, the Word. We know already he became flesh, but now we're going to back up and read some more about him, because it's all talking about him. Verse 4.
In him was life.
In him who was life? The Word, right? The one that later became flesh. But he's been around since day one. That's why when it talked about him being born in Micah the 5th chapter, it talked about the king of Israel coming out of Bethlehem. He had to be born in Bethlehem, but it said when he come, his going forth have been from old, from everlasting. That's what it said in Micah the 5th chapter. So he'd been around. When he became a man, he had just reduced himself from being God. He was the one that created everything. So it said, verse 4, in him was life, right? Mm-hmm. And what about that life? Go ahead.
And the life was the light of men.
Wait a minute. Now we got some light here, right? Because remember, we read the first thing he made was light, right? But we saw he had to redo some light or come up with some more light later on, right? Mm-hmm. But it's going to tell us about it now. It said in him was life, and the life was the light of men. See, that light that he came up with, the first thing he created on day one, that is to benefit man as well. That light is to lead us so we can get life. That's what that light is for. He's trying to get us life, and we don't even know it. And that's the first thing he did. He came up with a master plan to make sure we can get life. That's what he did on day one. Just like if you do any building project, you got to come up with some plan. Even if you don't put it down on paper, you got to at least have something in your mind, right? But most of the time you need, if it depending on how elaborate it is, you need to put it down on paper if you're going to build something or do anything, right? In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Just like when you build buildings, they have architects. Before you lay one brick or do anything, the architect sheds some light on the situation by drawing it all out for you. So you got something to see before you even done anything, have you? But go ahead, verse 5.
And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not.
See, now what kind of light we talking about here? You think we talking about some literal light? He said, the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. See, that light, we talking spiritual with what happened on the first day. Go ahead, verse 6.
There was a man sent from God whose name was John.
Okay, now he's talking about John the Baptist. What did John the Baptist come to do?
The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe.
Oh, the same John the Baptist came to bear witness of the light, right? See, this is the light he started off in the beginning. God came up with and gave you the plan. He laid the plan out from the beginning, the roadmap, so man can get life on day one. And everybody that follow that light, they going to get life, and everybody else, they going to remain in the darkness. They going to get destroyed. So he trying to lead you to the light, so he sent John the Baptist as a witness of the light, right? Go ahead, verse 8.
He was not that light.
Now, John the Baptist wasn't that light. Neither was that light in the beginning, the sun and the moon, was it? He made the sun and the moon later for us. But he was not that light. Go ahead.
But was sent to bear witness of that light.
See, was sent to bear witness of that light. Not the sun and the moon, but the first day light. Go ahead.
That was the true light.
That was the true light. See, this is the light you need. You might be in a lit up room and still you in darkness in your mind. Even though it's physical light all around you. But in your mind, you in darkness. He said, that was the true light which do what?
Which lighteth every man that cometh into the world.
Go ahead.
He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not.
See, that's that word. But now he is the light, right? And he laid a master plan out for us so we can come to the light and get life. But when he came into the world, which is part of that plan, and he had made the world didn't recognize him. But now, they didn't recognize the very light that they needed. But now, go to John 8. Let's see what Jesus himself said. John the 8th chapter.